Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. This is episode 60. Today on the show, I chat with Tony the therapist for another edition of Tony Time. We talk about the isolation and hope in mental illness. This is a follow-up to episode 59 with my brother Tannen, wherein I chat with Tannen about his relationship with the mental disorder schizophrenia, and his description that it's like an abusive relationship, which is just heartbreaking to me. But again, if you haven't listened to episode 59, go back and do that. It's fantastic. Very proud of my brother. He's very courageous for opening up and talking about his schizophrenia. So, before we get to that, though, I'd like to highlight a new iTunes review. These are, if you go to iTunes and you search for You, Me, Empathy, you can go and subscribe and you can leave a review. And if you do that, I will read it here on the show because they make me happy and it keeps this podcast going. It takes a couple of minutes. You could do it for free. Do that, please. If you can, that would be fantastic and lovely. Let's start with a recent one. This one is from Izzy Starr. And the title is The Podcast We All Need. Izzy says, a few months ago, I was lucky enough to stumble upon Known's Instagram at You, Me, Empathy, and I was immediately struck by his vulnerability and consistent warmth and openness. While I tend to procrastinate on starting new podcasts, I knew I had to check out You, Me, Empathy. After procrastinating for a few weeks, I finally checked out an episode and was instantly thankful. I felt the same compassion and empathy listening to the podcast that I was initially struck with from Known. Listening to this podcast is a perfect exercise in self-care. I find this podcast discusses emotions that I try to express with close friends and my therapist, but with even more ease and accessibility. Love this podcast. And that's from Izzy Starr. Thank you, Izzy. That is very sweet and thoughtful, and it made my day reading it. And you, listeners, can also make my day if you'd like to go leave a review in iTunes for You, Me, Empathy. That would be fantastic. Thank you. Be sure to follow You, Me, Empathy on Twitter and Instagram at You, Me, Empathy. We also have a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/You, Me, Empathy. I think that's it. What else? We have a Patreon, patreon.com/You, Me, Empathy, where you can support the show on an ongoing basis financially if you wanted. I also have a You, Me, Empathy shop where you can get sweet merch like t-shirts to wear the feeliness on your heart. Literally. Like a circle, the You, Me, Empathy logo on your heart. Well, technically on your chest and belly. But anyways, it's a shirt and it's cute and it's lovely. And I have one and Jessica has one and some of you have one and it's great. Go check that out. Links are in the show notes for this episode. Okay, let's get into episode 60. This is with Tony the therapist on the isolation and hope in mental illness.
La 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 la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in Tony time. And me, and all of you. Hello, Tony. We're here again.
We are.
How's it going?
I'm doing wonderful. I love being in the new studio.
Thank you. I'm excited to hear that. Today we are talking about schizophrenia. This is a follow-up episode to my brother Tannen's episode on his experience with schizophrenia. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and do that first. Pause this, go back and listen to that. Or you can listen to this first, get some insight into what Tannen is going through. But please listen regardless to Tannen's episode. He very proud of that little dude. Yeah. So let's before we get into that, Tony, you have a little spiel that you need to do. Proceed.
I do. So, hey, everybody. So, my name is Anthony Romagi, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist here in California. And I am licensed by the California Board of Behavioral Sciences, and my license number is LMFT 47805. And I have a private practice in Newport Beach, California. And and I'm just once again happy to be here.
You're just crushing life.
Just
Crushing hard and
grinding,
blasting those delts and creaming your lats.
Yeah, and all that, right?
Just slamming that pec deck.
Yep. Ash is going to the gym with me. We're hitting the gym.
Nice.
I know. So she's actually really enjoying. This is my daughter, by the way. She's really enjoying working out, which is really cool. Yeah, we're having a good time getting into.
So when you go to the gym, I was joking about all that stuff. Yeah. I don't do gym, so that's my language.
Right.
Obviously, it's not accurate. But I only say that because Tony, you're ripped. You're a very strong boy.
I could be more ripped. I mean, there's some fat here that needs to be shed, but but I certainly do love lifting and getting to the gym, and it's just such a wonderful part of my self-care. And
what is your favorite exercise routine at the gym?
Oh gosh, this is going to sound so standard and basic, but it's chest press. It's doing bench press.
Okay, all right.
It's just I mean, it's it's just, I don't know, I guess chest and for people out there who will lift, recognize maybe men, maybe women different, but for men, I don't know, doing a chest press and bench press, you just get that instant inflation and it just,
feels good.
It just feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like instant results.
Sure. Yeah.
And you keep, the pump for maybe an hour or two and then you leave and, it slowly fades, but,
pump it up, bro.
But it feels good. It feels good in the meantime.
Pump that chest.
Yes. Well, hey, so
I love it.
But it's fun. Yeah. I love.
No, that's good.
It's so nice getting into the gym, particularly we've had so much rain here lately. So to be able to get into the gym and obviously all the mountain biking stuff's been put on hold till the trails here start to dry out. But
nice.
Yeah.
Well,
but if I could run like you, I would do that. If I didn't weigh 210, I would spend more time trail running because I think that is phenomenal.
Well, the invitation's always open.
No, I appreciate it. Hopefully my 10-minute mile can keep up with you.
It doesn't matter.
Or we could lap.
Sometimes I'm just happy to be out there. I don't need to go fast.
That's true.
Yeah. So,
By the way, are you going to do that same race this year?
I am. I've actually booked a month prior in March a half marathon trail run down at Las Ramblas in San Juan Capistrano.
Oh, awesome.
With Justin. Both I'll be running with Justin. So I have a couple races coming up.
I hope you guys get a little bit better weather this year and conditions.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So last year, Tony's referring to this ultra run that's held up in San Luis Obispo area that I did last year for the first time. It's first year, and it was a 25K. So it's a little over a half marathon. It's 15 miles. The brutal aspect of it was that the hills are just nonstop, just climbing. And then also it was pouring rain and it was just muddy. And so, your running shoes just have like an inch of mud on them. It was just brutal. It was brutal.
The pictures were brutal.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the pictures.
Yeah. So, I'll be doing those races again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No,
Thanks,
that's
man.
very cool.
So let's talk about, first of all, just, an acknowledgement of Tannen opening
Oh my
up,
gosh.
like is great. And it's something I obviously he's very near and dear to my heart as my brother. But on another level, like we've had him and I an emotional journey together, like me sort of being there for him and listening. And I feel very proud of that as a brother to be able to do that and have been able to do that. And, just the acknowledgement of him just being able to talk about it a little, even recognizing that like, hey, I realize you may not believe me, but still getting it out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to encourage listeners to go back and listen to it too. I can honestly say, I have loved this podcast and I love all the guests. This has been really the coolest thing I've been connected with. And I appreciate everybody that comes on and shares their story and their work. It's just really been an incredible year in my life. So actually, thank you for having me be a part of it, because again,
Absolutely.
I am just constantly week to week knocked out by the people that come on, share their life and their stories, and our online community, that share and are vulnerable. And it's really, really been something, that it's just been so phenomenal. But again, having said all that, listening to Tannen's episode, it almost just brought tears to my eyes as I was listening to it. And I'm quite sure I'm going to go back and listen to it again, because this can be such an isolating disorder.
Yeah.
And I think what was so emotional for me in listening to Tannen share it with you, one, your brothers.
Right.
And I know the story because I know you.
Yeah.
But to hear the two of you talk about it and to hear Tannen share it and what his experiences are and the embarrassment or shame. I don't want to put words to his story, but just like he said, holding on to different parts of what he experiences and not sharing those things. Mm-hmm. And then, at one point he says, he finally I was going to explode if I didn't share it.
Right.
And so for people that are suffering with this, the acknowledgement that people will think I'm crazy or that this won't be acceptable or understood, it isolates.
So isolating. Yeah.
So isolating. And this disorder, most disorders obviously, will do that, of course. Whether it's depression or anxiety. But, schizophrenia, a psychotic-based disorder that impacts cognition and affect and behavior. And, it's just that it just comes with a severity that I think, for them, it's a lot to carry.
Yeah. And I've always sensed that about Tannen. Obviously, he's especially over the last, maybe 5 years, when he has started sort of opening up to me more and opening up to his family more. And, I as someone who loves him so much and is that sort of people pleaser type 2 Enneagram person and wants to help and care, it's almost like an extra level of difficulty, because his experience of reality is very different than mine. Right. And I so like even more isolating, right? Like you said, and it's just like my heart breaks to know that he's suffering alone in a sense. Right. And I've been encouraging him to talk to, to try to find a group of other people who have the same disorder. Mm-hmm. And I know it's out there. Yeah. And so I think, that was just...
No, absolutely. As a brother, you're saying I would love to see him get connected with more people who also suffer, so he's not so isolated. Because you're right. One of the fascinating things about schizophrenia is the hallucinations and the delusions, right? That they go through. And so they do experience the world in a completely different way than you and I do. We certainly all have our own little, filters, I call them, or interpretations of the way in which, information is processed. But, we're for somebody who's actively, or not actively, but somebody who's experiencing these delusional and hallucinogenic based experiences, it's very different. And so, as Tannen was sharing, talking about going to the movies, right? And he's getting messages.
Right.
And that's probably not, the experience you and I are having. So, our brain is not making the same sense of the information that his brain's making.
Right.
So it's one thing for you and I to come out and talk about a movie, and we can generally track with one another, on the plot. And, what do you think that, the director
Zombievers was A+.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, what did you think of the dialogue? What did you think of the plot? What did you think of, cinematography? And some of which he obviously can as well. But we're not getting interpretive messages, right? Our brain is not picking up on data that his brain is making sense of. And, he mentioned the license plates, and getting messages from license plates. Yeah. And again, our brain is not processing that information the same way. And so all this extra sensory information that he's having to process, and then to be able to try and distinguish between, what is real and what is a part of his individual experience, right? In terms of what is happening in his mind. The best movie, obviously for this is A Beautiful Mind. I mean, that I love. And I love the end or I shouldn't give this away, I guess, but spoilers.
It's like 20 years old. You can give away spoilers for A Beautiful Mind.
And I don't think it's a spoiler, but just at one point, one of the main character at the end has to ask somebody he's with, is this person actually here with us? Because he's having a conversation.
Right.
And because his mind might potentially make this person up completely.
Right.
And he may be receiving information that is not actually happening in the world around him in terms of what everybody else around him would be experiencing. So he checks in with this person. The person says, yes, this person is with us. And he's like, all right, continue. And,
that.
So it's just such a, different, interesting way in which a schizophrenic experiences the world.
How do we meet them where they are? Like, one of the things, and correct me if this is maybe wrong or damaging or whatever, but like, my perspective is that I need to recognize that Tannen's reality is his reality, and I need to respect that,
right?
Not diminish it, not say he's wrong or he's broken or whatever, right? I need to recognize that his reality is real. Is that a useful interpretation of like?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to, I think, understand the question, and I think
there's really no question. Right. It's really just like, I want to. So we talk a lot about on this show about validating experiences,
sure.
Right? And understanding that. So, for instance, like, my emotional experience as a child growing up with my father was different from even Tannen's, right? Or my other brother or sister,
right?
And so I'm taking the same tact and looking at his view as also valid,
right?
But it's just different than mine.
Yeah, gosh, this one's tricky because, and I'm going to, kind of be honest here with you and obviously with our listeners, is that, this is definitely not an area of expertise for me, because working as a marriage and family therapist, schizophrenia, particularly active schizophrenia, is going to be treated by a psychiatrist,
right?
And potentially a psychologist. But certainly with a psychiatrist. I mean, because this has such a medically based issue. It's such a medically based issue and requires a psychopharmacological intervention.
Right.
But psychotherapy is adjunct to that. I mean, talk therapy, and then just providing the client with additional resources. So it's, again, it wouldn't be unheard of for somebody with schizophrenic to see a licensed clinical social worker or a marriage and family therapist. Again, if they were functioning well and needed help with just the other kind of life-based type of things that we're talking about, relationships and so forth. So, I feel like that question is a significant question, because now we're kind of talking treatment and what exactly might almost be the best treatment to help somebody. Because the thought that I had when you were sharing this, and again, I this is not well thought through, and it certainly doesn't have a clinical treatment basis that I'm pulling from, But the thing I was thinking about was I'm wondering in that case what it would be like to talk with them, because if there is the delusions and the hallucinations that they're pulling from, and yet they're also trying to learn some reality testing, kind of like the example I was just giving in A Beautiful Mind, where he was like, is this person here or not? Help me understand. So I can function, in this social setting in the moment, help me understand what's happening, because in my mind, this may be what's happening, but the 3 or 4 around us, who are talking, that's certainly not going to be their experience. So help me navigate that. So is this person here or not? And so I could see where potentially as I'm kind of thinking this through, where I wonder what the value and the benefit would be of some reality testing, but also being not shaming. I think that's the other part that you're talking about, not shutting somebody down, not shaming, not being critical, not being judgmental, right? Like one of the things I think that is so helpful in schizophrenia or working or being with somebody who is schizophrenic is truly understanding the disorder.
Right.
And really understanding again that this is, from all intents and purposes, a brain-based disorder. And it is, there's a lot of different, there's so much we don't know about schizophrenia. Because of,
Why is that, do you think?
well, I think because it's a brain disorder, and I think because, for only the last 20 years, we've had the imaging capacities to really get in and, look at the brain and to really see what's happening with the brain. And I think because schizophrenia is a complex disorder, I think it involves a lot of different brain regions. And so I think for that reason, it's very complex. And we still don't technically fully understand why some people get it and some don't. We understand that there's a genetic component. There does appear to be a genetic component. There does appear to be greater likelihood if there's a family member that there will be, but that's not always the case. So, but there does seem to be evidence for that. There also appears to be evidence that if you have 2 identical twins, that there's a greater likelihood that the other twin will get schizophrenia if the other twin has it, but a reduction if it's fraternal twins. So there definitely seems to be a genetic component, but again, it happens when there's not, or when somebody can't trace it back into their family. So, and then there's a lot of other evidence to support that potentially it has something to do with early infections in the central nervous system early in childhood. I know there's a lot of research around, is it somehow almost kind of autoimmune and has to do with inflammation in the brain? There's a lot of I think, research and theory of, because it tends to happen in adolescence, more often, particularly with men, sometimes a little later with women, but it tends to happen a lot, 16 years of age up to maybe 30 years of age. Men a little higher than women, that there's some support for the idea that this may occur as a result of the brain going through these different important times in our lives when the brain's pruning. We're getting this great growth and kind of gray matter and neuronal growth and cell growth, and then all of a sudden the brain starts to prune for efficiency. That something might potentially be happening during that process that might disrupt the normal development of that. And so, might that be some type of, autoimmune, or may there just be some faulty, genetic process that happens during that time? And then if you factor in if there's some stressors that are happening during that time, or whether there's, trauma or stressors, or whether there's substance use, marijuana has been linked to this. Certainly, some of the I'm totally blank, psychedelics. So whether something then happens. So, but again, kind of that idea that there was a predilection for this, and then these different things may have triggered, the onset of the actual disorder, and through some imaging, what they've actually recognized is that some of the prodromal symptoms in terms of brain imaging, we're able to demonstrate that they could see brain changes between somebody with schizophrenia and somebody without somebody who would go on to develop schizophrenia versus somebody who would not, and they were able to already see brain changes in critical areas where years later, that would be the thing that would or that person would then create or end up having schizophrenia. So before they even had a symptom, before they had an observable symptom.
Yeah.
So we're there. So I think with understanding the brain more and really understand and the function of imaging, brain imaging, and then understanding even some neurochemicals. One of the two neurochemicals that they know have a lot to do with this is dopamine and glutamate. And so, so there's so many factors that go into this particular disorder. So
this may be a little sort of side tangent, but have you heard of a company called GeneSight?
No, huh?
It's GENE Sight, SIGHT. I forgot who was telling me about it. I don't know if it was a guest on the show or I don't remember, but the idea is that actually it was Courtney Blanton from Hi, How Are You Project. She was saying she had, connections at this company and they did basically a gene test with blood or whatever. Yeah. And the idea is that it will clarify in a much more specific, much more maybe with more data way, like what is the right drug for your particular depression or things like that. Have you heard of stuff like that?
Yeah, I actually have. The name didn't ring a bell, but I've heard about that, where they are actually testing now to determine, like with depression, like what it is that you may, like which depression medications may actually work better for you.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
I mean, that would take out so much
guesswork
and just pain on the patients.
Going through the trials of trying the different medications. So, I'm interested to know, what the long-term, research will show with that. Like, are patients getting
the
better?
Effect of it.
The actual effects, I mean, is it working?
Is it working?
Is that supporting, the reality that by this identification that that was the right drug for me, like that made all the difference in the world. I mean, that would be phenomenal. I mean, that's the excitement of this field, is that I think is our research and our and the science-based aspect of this continues to grow, and we get to just hone in on and just maybe more quickly identify what's the best medication for every individual person, right? I mean, you have so many antidepressants out there, and many people try several, right, until they find the one that works for them.
Oh yeah.
So this would be phenomenal, And again, if we were able to apply that to bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, psychotic disorders for sure. So that would be amazing.
It would be, and it makes me think about Tannen and the sort of medication journey he's been on, which is just a ton, and Latuda, Risperdal, like all these pretty heavy,
Abilify, Risperdal, Halidol,
pretty heavy medications. One of the things I've talked to Tannen about is, maybe this is my lack of knowledge. And again, I have a lack of knowledge because I'm just a silly boy. Also, I'm a human. But sometimes I feel like, man, like there has to be a medication for him that will stop the voices. Right? I mean, like, is that crazy, or is that not, we're not there yet medically? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've read and heard, I mean, they're, again, this is kind of individualized in terms of the benefits that people get from the medication. Some people get greater benefits than others.
Yeah.
And, and to the point that we're talking about now, it's going through that process of trying these different medications because, and more often than not, they're not on one medication, right? I mean, they're on several.
Right.
And the thing that was kind of interesting about schizophrenia, as I was kind of brushing up and thinking about it for this podcast, and so going back and doing some research and looking at it, was, again, this idea that there's so many different brain regions that, schizophrenia impacts, or the, the phenomenon of these brain regions and the deficits of connectivity or functioning, or the structural changes, neurochemical. I mean, it's such a complex thing that, it obviously requires multiple, psychopharmacological interventions to try and reach the different symptoms. And so it is very symptom management based.
Right.
And so, you're trying to, let's say give one because that's going to, impact, affect. You're giving another for the psychotic symptoms, and you have issues of auditory processing, and so there's so many different things that it's a concoction, right? I mean, ultimately it's a concoction of meds that, are being put together. So, but I do think different people get varying levels of relief from their symptoms, and, some people, respond better than others as well, right? Some people have different, levels of the disorder, right? Or the disease. I mean, some people are more mild, some more moderate, some more severe. So I think that's going to play a part as well. And the progressive nature of this disease. So, but it would be, incredibly awesome if he could get more relief, from that to, if he were seeking that. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is like, and I've talked to Tannen about this openly, is like he's exhausted, right? He's tired of taking new meds, which I get, right? We all can sort of relate to that.
I mean, they have the different side effects.
And the side effects and right. But there's also maybe a part of him that is, he's accepted this reality. He's accepted his life, thinking that he's, a pawn for the government and that he's in this abusive relationship. He used that term,
right,
which I think is a powerful one. And that's his life.
Yeah. Yeah. When he talked about it in that way, that to me was so powerful, and emotional, to hear his, on one point, or on one side of it, like you're saying, it's like there was something about the acceptance, and he really sounded like he had made that acceptance or, peace with, because he compared it to, I could have another disease, right? I could have, diabetes. I could have this. I mean, and this is what I have. And yet the exhaustion, or this, for me, just even like the sadness that just, comes with, like, to the point of, just the exhaustion that would have to come with this, and the, again, the other points, the isolation and all the other things that come with this, all the different medicines, and, but he did really sound like he had really accepted that this was his life. And
it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
What, like, I know there has been research about like violence with people who have schizophrenia. Like culturally, we sometimes think about people with more psychosis-based disorders being violent or like harmful to others.
Right.
That's not true, right?
No. As Tannen even pointed out, no, that's not. I think what some of us may have in our minds when we think about this disorder is the crazy person on the street talking to themselves, right?
Sure.
And of course that can be a manifestation of the disease in its severe form, untreated. But no, there are people out there that, we probably interact with all the time who have this disorder, and you would not know.
Yeah.
They function and they work as Tannen does, and and married, and parent, go to church on Sunday or don't, or but they do all the things that people do. So no, I think one thing about what we talk about reducing the stigma of mental health or reducing the stigma of schizophrenia is, no, these are not dangerous people. That's the point.
Yeah.
No.
What would you say to Tannen right here? Maybe he's feeling, or just a listener who is maybe feeling a little bit hopeless in their disorder, that whether it's schizophrenia or something else, and they just feel like stuck in it,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I think the thing that I think of right away in hearing that question is that, no, there are so many good treatments out there. And there are so many great interventions. And again, whether it's depression or anxiety, or whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, something with a psychotic part. No, there are so many good medications. We really have we've come so far with psychopharmacological interventions. And again, like I said, the brain studies and the awareness of the brain in the last 20 years has really flourished in these areas. And so we know so much more. And so we have so many better ways of treating. So no, I would actually, going back to hope, or that was the previous podcast, but it was the same day.
Yeah.
But we're always talking about hope. the idea here is that no, I mean, hope is something I think that is very, very now a part of this process that people can have, because again, I think we do know so much more than we did. We're continuing to learn, year after year after year. There's so many great programs out there. Michigan has a great one that studies neurological disorders and diseases. There's so many great research that's currently occurring and science that's emerging and growing. And I really think, with all the imaging that we've developed in the last 20 years, that, in the next 20 years, I think, or 10 years, even 5 years, I think we're going to just grow exponentially in our ability to treat these type of disorders. So I feel greatly optimistic and extremely hopeful that, the barbaric nature of early treatment, that 100 years ago that we put people through is going to be, and all the various different forms of interventions that we've created, we're just on such a wonderful upswing, and I think we're just going to be able to continue improving people's life functioning and ability to have full lives. So I'm encouraged, and I hope others would feel encouraged. And I would just encourage anybody who's experiencing anything, whether it's mild to severe, to seek treatment, and talk to a professional, and because things can be done.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. What if you can't afford it?
Oh gosh, that is really out of my realm of knowledge, unfortunately. But the thing that I'm mildly aware of is that, I think any county is going to have county-based programs.
Yeah.
So, my encouragement in that case would be to do your research, but I would probably start with, a county program-based program and reach out to a county-based social worker. Okay. If the person is in indigent care and in need, I would definitely encourage somebody to reach out to social services of their county. And I'm confident, that every county is going to have that. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
But definitely a good place to start is with social services.
Yeah.
So, and then, in a worst case scenario, if somebody would need crisis evaluation or treatment, that, again, I think most of us have county-based hospital systems. Yeah. And so I would definitely encourage that as well. And if something's crisis oriented, call 911. If it's a medical or mental emergency, that's 911. So
absolutely. Well, is there anything else that we should talk about when it comes to schizophrenia? Anything in your little notes there that you wanted to bring to the listeners?
Well, I think as I was going through this and I was preparing for this, and this, I really wanted to be prepared because, again, this one's a little bit outside of something that I tend to see in private practice. But to me, it's a very fascinating disorder, and it's something I'm very interested in because I'm very interested in brain-based disorders. Just some of the quick things that maybe our listeners could benefit from that I've jotted down here is some information that I pulled from the internet was that looks like that this disorder occurs in about 3 to 7 in 1,000 people. So the percentages are 0.3 to 0.7. Okay. So it's it happens, but it's fairly low. Yeah. But it certainly happens. But it tends to happen fairly low. Again, we've already talked about the fact that there can potentially be a genetic hereditary component of this disorder. But that also the fact that environmental factors can play a part. And again, I think I mentioned that if there's any obstetric, when you're first born, I'm trying to think of how to say that word. What is it?
Well, I don't know the context you're saying it.
But obstetrician. If we cut that back.
Yeah.
Obstetric. Yeah. Complications at birth. Again, I think I mentioned if there's an infection in the central nervous system that happens in early childhood, childhood trauma, social stressors are things that, we think play a part potentially in this. Yeah. One of the things that is a part of schizophrenia, and again, the presentation can be different. So you can, symptoms, they can be positive or negative. And I don't mean positive as in positive good. Positive meaning things are added, so for instance, most of us don't have hallucinations. Well, hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking and speech. So we actually call that positive because they're added on to something we don't normally experience.
I see. It's like in a mathematical sense.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
Got it.
So, or negative, which again, we don't mean we're taking away, but in this case, it means fewer. So in this case, it means sometimes you see this like more of a catatonic type of schizophrenic or lack of affect. Lack of feeling, lack of affect. So that's what we mean by kind of more negative. Again, I think we've pretty much covered onset. It tends to happen more early in life. Very rare that you'll see it occur after the age of 40 years of age. So
right.
Very, very, very rare. Again, the idea that, we're looking at a brain-based disorder. It is chronic. I mean, there's not a cure. And, but we manage the disorder. It can be progressive, certainly. And again, I think most importantly about treatment is, it tends to require a psychiatric treatment, which is going to require psychopharmacological interventions, and then psychotherapy is going to be helpful, and then getting the person, support and resources like we were talking about with Tannen, just getting him in a place where a group or we know he does counseling, but getting to a place where he can share his experiences with other people, right?
Yeah.
So he's not isolated, because that's such a negative part of any disorder is the isolation. I mean, we're social creatures. We need to be social. And that seems to have such a major impact on us. So, but no, I mean, I think, a lot of the other stuff that I took notes on was really just kind of more about the brain-based changes. And I don't want to put our listeners to sleep. So if that's something they're interested in, they can research. But
excellent. Well, thank you for that
sure.
knowledge drop. I think I want to wrap up here talking about something not mental health related at all, but because this is sort of in honor of Tannen, talking about movies.
Yeah.
Tannen's a huge movie fan. I just wanted to mention, and maybe you've watched some movies recently you've enjoyed, but I wanted to mention some movies recently that I've enjoyed, listeners. One is a documentary called Minding the Gap. It's currently streaming on Hulu, and it's probably going to win the best documentary feature at the Oscars this year. It's really quite stunning. The premise is these three friends in Rockford, Illinois. It's shot by, I think he started shooting it when he was 16, 17, and he shot over the course of 12 years of their lives. They're young punks like I was, and they escaped their world skateboarding.
Oh, wow.
And it's really... it sort of develops into this commentary about fatherhood and toxic masculinity and race and just identity. And it's really quite beautiful and moving. And I was crying throughout. I saw a lot of myself in these boys. And so I really highly recommend that. It's called Minding the Gap. It's on Hulu. I saw First Man recently, the Damien Chazelle movie about the first landing on the moon by the Americans. And it's like a technical marvel. Technically, it's so well shot, and it's beautiful. The scoring, all the sound editing, it's just really quite stunning. And there's some shots in there that will sort of stick in your brain, just really beautiful. It's hard to watch at times because Neil Armstrong was kind of quiet, reserved, and kind of shut off emotionally in some ways with his family and stuff. But it's really well done, and I highly recommend that as well. The other one is drawing a blank now. I'm going to pull up my phone, and the other one is 8th Grade.
Oh yeah,
which is also I think streaming on Amazon Prime now, and this is a Bo Burnham movie. It's a tight 90. It's basically about this young girl who's in the 8th grade, and it's coming of age. It captures adolescence like no other film I've ever seen. It's so raw and uncomfortable at times, but beautiful, and just the lead in it, Elsie Fisher, is amazing, and it's funny, and it'll pull on your heartstrings, and it's delightful.
That's awesome.
It's really good. So that's 8th Grade. I think it's on Amazon. Those are 3 movies that I saw recently that I really enjoyed. What about you? Have you seen anything recently that you've enjoyed?
You're not adding Mary Poppins to that list?
We saw Mary Poppins Returns
We
together,
did.
Tony and I.
With our wives.
With
Let's
our wives.
clarify.
No, we were together. It was just
But we
the
were.
two. No,
We were.
we were. Yeah, I mean, I love musicals. I grew up on musicals. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
I thought for what it was, they
I
did
thought
a
it was
good
fun.
job.
Yeah.
I didn't
Any
die.
new like Zombiever like movies you've enjoyed recently?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't actually. I know. I was as you were talking. I was kind of like searching my brain for have I seen anything just really cool? But I have. I've been so busy. Just practice has been busy and doing a little bit of writing and I think I'd bore the viewers if I tell them the brain-based YouTube videos I'm watching all the time.
Well, what about
reading,
TV shows or music shows you've seen
gosh,
recently?
I know. The only thing, what I did see, which was really, really cool, and I caught just a glimpse of it, and Ashley was watching it, and I just kind of sat down with her and got into it, and then went back and rewatched it, was a documentary called American Meme.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that.
And it was really fascinating because what it took a look at is basically, social media culture or Instagram-based culture. And it took a lot of the people, like Paris Hilton, it talked a lot about the influencers of social media. And it did a pretty deep dive into these people and their lives and their histories and their impact on social media. And their... the life they live as a result of this, internet-based life. And it was fascinating. I mean, it was sad. I mean, honestly, because what I took away from it, and I even feel like what a lot of the people who have these, huge Instagram lives were we're really talking about the shallowness of it. I mean, they were really talking about the falsehood of it, that it really is a false presentation of self. It's all to get more followers. So you've got to increase the shock. You've got to increase skin. You've got to, salaciousness, and you're constantly pushing that envelope to get more and more notoriety. But the hollowness of it, and so it was really, really cool. I mean, it was a really interesting, and I think it was a really educational documentary. Again, called American Meme, MEME. So.
Well, and you made. I started a documentary. I'm going to finish it because it was very fascinating. But when you were talking about American Meme, it made me think of this documentary on Hulu again. I think called Fire Fraud.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
FYRE. It's about the Fire Festival like a couple years ago. Remember
really?
that?
No. What was that?
So it was this big sort of concert festival, like it's supposed to be elite, and it was like led by...
And then the guy ended up getting busted for extortion.
Led by Ja Rule and this one tech bro.
Right.
And it's very fascinating, but it'll make you feel just gross. And like, the culture of that, it's so... I mean, he was essentially like... you think he was 25 when he did this thing? But he like would... through stories from like his employees, like... telling this in the documentary, he would basically like, he had no money, so he would like tell everyone just to drum up interest and payments.
Right.
Like he had 100 tickets to sell for Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
And then he would get the interest and get the money, and then he would buy the Hamilton tickets.
Right.
But then he'd be in debt again, so he'd have to like keep
the next
that
thing.
going.
Yeah.
And it was like, what a nightmare.
Wow.
It was fascinating. And that's on Hulu. It's called Fire Fraud. FYRE, and I'm gonna finish it because it was fascinating, but it'll make you feel weird and sad.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Well, it just gives us a taste of sometimes what is happening in our culture, right? Where, it's
a reminder to be like, hey, maybe get off your phone.
Yeah.
Recognize, get outside a bit, connect with people on a genuine level. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop trying to create a lifestyle that is ultimately not fulfilling.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. That was Schizophrenia in Movies on You, Me, Empathy. Again, go listen to Tannen's episode on
yes, please.
His schizophrenia relationship, and just proud of my little brother. That'll do it, I guess. Listeners, definitely go and follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at YouMeEmpathy. We have a Facebook group at facebook.com/group/YouMeEmpathy. leave us reviews on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe. Send me an email if you want to chat, yumiempathy@gmail.com. Let me know if you'd love to be on this show. I'd love to hear from you. And so that's it. That's my spiel. Thanks to Tony again for sitting in for Tony Time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. And to you listeners, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.